always have plans, have something in your plans. You're going to make that quilt. You're going to go to that spot and get that coffee that you really like that you've been putting off. You're going to go have donuts and coffee with the loved one that you've been not saying you do. Always have the plan to do something, whether that's you're going to write a book or you're going to go see Europe or whatever it is. Make that plan and then just slowly and smallly start working at it. And then every day becomes a happy day because you're doing that thing that is making you happy. What makes me happy is getting on planes for long periods of time.
Yeah.
It's totally afraid of flying.
Yeah.
But that makes me happy, and land in a place that I've never been and just enjoy that.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Sylvis, ready to unlock the keys to a life of true abundance. We're diving into everything from financial freedom and optimal health to meaningful relationships, geographic freedom, and everything in between. It's about creating a life rich in experiences, purpose, and joy. Get ready for empowering conversations, expert insights, and real-life stories that inspire you to live abundantly. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living podcast community. I've got a treat for you today. For those of you who don't know me, before I introduce my guest, my name is Amy Sylvis. I am the founder and CEO of Sylvis Capital. We invite folks to invest alongside of us in hands-off real estate investing. But on this podcast, we love to highlight incredible people who are living abundantly. We hear from so many of you all how inspired you are by our guests, what they're doing, how they give to the world. And when I met Linc, our guest, and you'll see why, I just walked away so inspired and frankly wanting to be more like him. So I'm delighted to introduce you to our guest, Linc Johnson today, or Lincoln. Maybe I should use your full name, sir. But
No. If you say Lincoln, that's you're my wife or my mom.
Ah, gotcha. I am neither. So we'll go with Linc. Linc, welcome. I'm just so excited for our community to hear about your inspiring story.
Yeah, and it's always great to tell it because you never know what you go through. Everybody has their days and times, so sometimes you just have to be there to be a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day.
Amazing. And you and I met, I set up a USC Facebook group for folks learning to network, to talk about investing, and we have these meetups, and you showed up with your smiley face, and we just all got to networking. No, so tell us a little bit more. There's going to be a lot to uncover here, but give us just a brief introduction to yourself to kick us off, if you would mind.
I'll start at the beginning because, like you said, we have a lot to cover. So I grew up in Compton, California. My mom was an educator. Most of my family were educators, and so I grew up in a household where everything was about education. I always tell this same story, so people who have heard it are probably tired of it. You can't have pie on Thanksgiving unless you know your 9 times tables. Right. And then I was the kid that I was a behavior kid. I was a class clown. I like to disrupt the class. So I spent my time disrupting class and challenging the teachers because on holidays and weekends, I was still in school, summer, all of that. I don't know what it's like to not be in school. But I never thought I would be an educator until I went to college. And I realized being a class clown wasn't a good idea. I went to Morehouse College, which is where Martin Luther King Jr. went to school, and Ike Lee and a bunch of other people. And so I felt like I was the dumbest student on campus. So I had to teach myself the high school curriculum that first semester of freshman year. I lost 80 pounds, started getting gray hair, and taught myself the high school curriculum. And I'm like, oh, I should be a teacher. I'm an excellent teacher. So I went back and started teaching in the neighborhood. I hated it. I hated teachers. I still wasn't over that. 22, ripe old age of 22, I'm trying to teach. And I failed miserably because I didn't know what I was doing. And I went and got my master's degree in publishing in New York, never to teach again, but I couldn't live with the failure. So I ended up actually coming back and challenging it again. And what I did was I focused on the toughest neighborhoods. So of course I taught in Compton, Watts, South Central, East LA, East Hollywood, Wilmington, all the hoods in LA County pretty much. And I worked with students with behavior issues because I was the behavior kid whisperer, right? And so, and then I just became a lifelong teacher, started educating, and that's the setup for the next part of the story, right?
So inspiring to take what was maybe somewhat of a struggle for you, but you had to overcome yourself and to say, you know what, I'm going to reach my hand down and give back using my own lived experience to try to understand and meet the students where they are. And you didn't sign up for areas of the world where I'm guessing there was abundant resources, community support. You weren't like, hey, I want the easy box. You wanted to make an impact, it sounds like. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but
I wanted to find the worst off students. I needed to find specifically Black and brown boys from these rough neighborhoods that are actually very intelligent, but are using it for nefarious reasons, right? And so how do you change that energy? How do you get them to refocus that energy into something more positive? So that was my goal. So that's why I would go into the hoods. And then, of course, it was tough. I was young, big, Black man, so I can engage the class and command their attention, right? And control their behavior a lot better than other people would have, and engage with them because I knew all the hood stuff. When they would try to talk about hood stuff in class, I grew up in the hood, right? So I knew all the codes and all the things. I knew how to stop the fights, and when something was going on, when the energy was wrong and somebody says a couple words, a couple certain ways, right? I would be right on it. And hey, I'm telling you, the bad kid whisperer.
Ow. Look, you're obviously an intelligent man. You know how to command. You've got a commanding presence. There's a lot you could have done with your life, Linc, and you have, because I know there's more to this than just that. Yeah. So we'll get to that. The topic of the podcast is abundance. And I think society, Linc, and let me know if you agree with this, teaches us that it's all about money. It is all about that bottom line. And if you have a whole bunch of zeros in your bank account, you're set. You've done it. The happiness is there. The fulfillment is there. I'm guessing teaching in the hood maybe wasn't that lucrative for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah. What was your line of thinking? Did you ever have any kind of doubts of like, hey, I'm sacrificing a lot, or maybe I'm missing out? What?
No, never. There's a few things. There's a few hustles in education that you can participate in. And so it has one of the best retirements. So you're putting money in out of sight, out of mind. So anything that you do extra is extra, right? You're really building a nest egg depending on how long you do it. And then on the other hand, you got a lot of time. So educators, we complain about not getting paid, but we literally only teach 8 or 9 months a year unless we teach in the summer. We get every Christmas off, spring break. I get off of work at 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. So I have time for things. So that's first how I got my education. Once I finished my BA, I worked. I had a job since I was like 14. Like I didn't grow up in the household where you weren't going to make an income. I didn't have to contribute to the household, but if I wanted things that my parents weren't going to provide, I had to provide them for myself.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Right. And so I just had that work ethic. And ever since I was about 16, I always had 2 jobs because I always said that I have more time than money. And I understand for a lot of people, working in the system is not very lucrative because I'm worth so much more. If this district will pay me $77,000 a year, I'm probably worth $250,000 a year just doing this out in the world. But how am I I won't get to the kids that I'm looking for. And I don't want to work with privileged, advantaged kids because I don't connect with them. So culturally, there's nothing I can bring to them other than teach them about or engage them in things that are different from their culture, right?
Of course.
So anyway, so I would always have second jobs, third jobs. I started teaching college. I would teach in the hood during the day, and then I go teach college in the evenings. And those 2 jobs are my main jobs that I have parlayed over the last couple decades. And then I'll do anything. I will copy edit for a company. I will take a $20 an hour looking at evaluating somebody's teaching lesson, their 15-minute lesson or something. So I would do any of that. I always want to be busy.
Yeah. Yeah. What I would imagine above monetary compensation, the difference you made in these students' lives pays itself infinitely over. At the risk of putting on the spot, do you have a story or two about a student or students?
Oh, for sure.
You really, I would love for us to hear, because I've got constant goosebumps the first 10 minutes of this recording. I'm ready to have more goosebumps. So I know you've got stories, friend. Please share.
And don't let me talk over you because I'm a talker. I will.
No one wants to hear me talk.
All of that. Well, I want to go back to something you said.
Okay.
Previously, we talked about abundance, and I can't go on without saying this. I was so fortunate to have the mother that I had, right? And so, although she tried to sit me down and teach me about money, and she gave me advice from the time I can remember, I would not listen to her because I was a mama's boy, and I always had her in my mind. So She would tell me to do something and I would do the opposite. And that's just across the board. I grew up in a household. I'm the youngest brother and I have 3 older sisters and my mom and dad. And so I was in my own world because I was the youngest. I was the only son and everybody was really different from me to me, except for my mom. Me and my mom that's my everything. And so anyway, I was fortunate to have her because what she taught me about having or not having something had nothing to do with the amount of money that you had, because money was fleeting. It's going to come and go. And right, like you said, it doesn't guarantee happiness or solve all your issues, and it probably will create some. And so what she did was every summer, she was in education, so we were always learning. So every summer we get in the big yellow station wagon, and me being the oddball, I said in the backpack is what we call it, the way back.
Yep.
Area with all the camping gear and all the stuff. And she would drive across North America. I've been to Montreal, Canada in that, or whatever, right? I've been all over Mexico. We would go to Mexico once a year and once every now and then. And so I watched the world from the back of that station wagon for months of my life, years of my life added up to sitting in the back of that backpack and being in Wyoming or Kentucky or West Virginia or way outside the bounds of Compton. And we would stay in some very peculiar places. Our parents wanted us to be really strong-minded and be able to make it in the world. Fly, bird, fly, because we would be in Kentucky at a KOA campground where the KKK members live, and she would be telling us to go play with the kids. You might change the world. You might introduce yourself to those people. And we're like, Mom. And I'm a mama's boy, so I'm a big crybaby. But that's what she would do. I went to the Olympics in '76 in Montreal. I was 4, but I remember it. We stayed in a mental hospital. The hotels were all full, or my theory is my mom told us they were all full, but she knew somebody who knew somebody who could get us into that place so we could have the experience that we had as siblings traversing this mental hospital and not know. My sisters were older, so they probably figured out before I did what kind of place we were in, right? And that was I had that experience, and I went to the Olympics, but that experience outshines being at the Olympics. Well, did that on an educator salary, and my dad worked for GM and retired early. So,
shout out to your mom. Talk about incredible parents.
Emily Linc Johnson, yes.
Oh,
and she didn't just do that for me. She did that for dozens of and maybe hundreds of kids in Compton, right?
Yeah, that experience, right? If not just reading it in a book or hearing someone say something. Wow, you talk about that KOA and what was going on in Kentucky. I just had to pick my chin up off the ground.
Multiply that by 50 states. We're in America.
Truly. Yeah. Wow.
But we would go and we would be there, and it was an experience. So it made me addicted to seeing the world and traveling, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Okay. So we got your amazing mom. We'd love to hear about a student or two.
I'm sorry.
I know you've had tremendous impact.
The student I always tell people about is Raul.
Okay.
Raul was a 6th grade student. I was teaching in Los Angeles Unified about 20 years ago. And I was teaching what they used to call emotional disturbance class. I don't know what they call it in California now, but here in Nevada, they call it the STAR program. It's for students with behavior issues. Now, I'll preface that with it should be students who have been diagnosed with behavioral things, but the rule is so nebulous that if you have a kid in a school and he's 2 grades under, and there's no excuse for it, like they don't have some impairment that would make be 2 years under, we just throw them in what we call emotionally disturbed, and we overdo it. We do it with Black and brown boys, of course, go all the time. If it's a white or an Asian male, what the system usually does is provide them support. They'll bring in somebody to help fill in the gap. But when it's in the hood or Black and brown children, they get referred to special ed because I guess the teacher just doesn't have time to differentiate instruction for students who behave differently and look a certain way. And I'm not trying to politicize anything, but this is anybody listening to me can go Google what I just said and we'll see. It's like 6 or 7 times more. And anyway.
That's not political, sir. These are just facts. No.
Yeah.
We're showing facts. Yeah.
So Raul was the 6th grader, 12 years old. His mother was a drug addicted prostitute in the neighborhood. And this was a very Latino neighborhood. The school was maybe 91% Latino, maybe less. But anyway, that was Raul's mother. His dad, when I got there, his dad was in prison. Me and Raul hated each other. And I tell educators, forgive themselves if they have ill feelings toward a student, because sometimes you're human. So things happened. Me and Raul hated each other. He would greet me in the morning, "Why are you here?" And I would greet him in the morning, "Why are you here?" Right? And we just had this hate relationship, and Raul would wild out in class. I'm usually able to go in, and if the class would be wild, but by the first couple of days, we get a routine. And then you stop seeing those behaviors. But Raul, it was hard to gauge that. And so he would come and tear the class up. I had assistants, so my assistant would have to restrain him every day. And it was just tiring, and I couldn't figure it out. And so his father gets out of prison, and he comes to my class. I'm there after school. I'd rather work after school than before school. I'm the teacher that stays after school and then runs in the class when when the bell rings. I'm going with the kids to class. That's me.
Okay.
But I'm there late, getting ready to run in class in the morning. And so his dad comes and he's upset. He's like visibly upset and wants to have fisticuffs in my classroom. And so I'm trying to de-escalate him and tell him that, because what he's saying is, he had 2 sons with this lady, and they were on drugs, and now he's not on drugs, so he doesn't want to be with her or be connected to that, and he didn't want the kids, and they're forcing the kids on him, and he just got out of prison, very threatening. And I told him, "Hey man, like, there's nothing I can do about that. You have to deal with that. I need to have a parent that I can work with, right? I mean, what I care about is Raul," but at the time he didn't care. So what I decided, it took me about a week after that, I decided that Raul doesn't have love. Right? He wasn't nurtured by his mom. She's on drugs. His dad was on drugs and in prison, and we're in the hood, and the kids are taunting him and making him upset. So when I realized, and the bus driver, everybody hated Raul, right? And so all I was adding to that, right? And so I went and talked to the bus driver. "Please don't curse Raul out, miss. Like, let him get to school calm." I went and talked to the other teachers and told them that I'm going to be working on some things with Raul that we're going to have to fix. Anyway, long story short, one day I used to wear a shirt and tie to work. Raul grabbed my tie, and he's big like me. And so he was going to choke me out with my tie. So I stopped wearing ties. And that night I figured that Raul, he wants physical touch, right? We need to figure out a way to not have to restrain him every day, but to greet him in a way that whatever. So I started trying to give him a pound, but he would call me homosexual and tell me to get out of his face and get away from him. But then eventually he started appreciating the pounds in the morning. "Hey, good morning, Raul. Welcome to class. How's your day going?" And whatever. And we started instilling different things. Like I put a aloe vera on a desk back in the corner, because when he would go to PE or lunch, they'd taunt him. So he would come back to class with his heart broken and tear my class up. And so I gave him a space where he can curse, punch the wall, yell, get it out. And nobody could bother him and his aloe vera plant. And when he was ready to join the class, he would come. And it was so funny to be trying to teach, and this dude is saying the MF word, screaming it at the top of his lungs, but I'd still be, "Okay, students, everybody, I'm here. Anyway, Raul usually was unkempt and dirty, right? The neighborhood was taking care of him, right? Because he didn't have anything. And so he started cleaning himself, came hair clean and everything. And so when I started working for the prison system, I would keep a log of students, and I would check Raul's name in the prison system once every 18 months. And he never came to prison. From what I heard, he did high school very well. And
Wow.
hopefully I inspired him to go to college. I haven't, of course, you lose contact, but
Yeah.
that's my success story.
Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings, where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. I'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to sylviscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is sylviscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show. Incredible. Linc, I just think of that intuition. I'm sure it's a natural gift and probably pattern recognition and lived experience, but to just understand that, he was acting out and need to be physically restrained, and for you to understand he wanted physical touch. for most people, myself included, like, gosh, it sounds like the opposite. But what he was crying out for, and to give him that space to vent and discharge that.
Oh, that was amazing for
energy.
him. That was cathartic.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that he's the one. And when anybody asked me about my biggest success story, it was that one, because we went from hate to love. Like by the end of the year, that kid was doing his work. He was leading in the class, telling other people to be quiet or taking over lessons for me. So he's one of those ones.
You changed a life. And I'm positive there are dozens and hundreds of stories like that. What a gift. What an absolute gift. Truly, truly.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is a lot of this intuitive to you, my friend, or is this something you learned from your
I'm hyper emotional.
Okay.
It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like energy, and I feel it's different, right? And so not super analytical, not super, I will say, not super intelligent and all of that. But really feel. And so that has been my thing, is connecting with students and people I work with. I've taught kindergarten through doctorate. And so that experience you're saying, people have said from doctorates down, like, you've changed my life, or their family members, you changed my life. This is the first graduation I've ever gone to with this kid. I don't even know how to, and it's college, and I don't know how to accept that.
Right.
It's such a great feeling. And so, I've had a lot of moms and aunts and grandmoms cry in my arms about some of the things that I've done.
I can imagine. And you dropped a little hint just a few sentences ago about prison, about work that you've done. Can you tell us more about that? Because I found this to be amazingly moving too, and I know our listeners will as well.
So I mentioned earlier, I wanted to find the worst off students.
Yeah.
And this all happened by it's fate. I believe in that kind of thing.
Truly.
Right? I'm following the energy. And so my young family, when I was married previously, and my kids, we moved to a little town called Tehachapi, California.
Okay.
And I was like 28, and it was really inexpensive in California. And I had a Mustang, so I would commute 2.5 hours from the mountains in Tehachapi down to the hood. And so the people living there would say, I saw you leaving at 4:30 in the morning. Like, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to the hood. I teach kids in the hood. And they said, well, it's a prison over here. You could they have a whole school in the prison. And I'm like, man, I am an African-American male. I'm not volunteering to go into prison on any day of my life. They pay me enough to walk into a prison. And so, but it planted the seed. I was traveling a lot farther, and we moved. We made it. That was a good investment, the little condo in Tehachapi. So we ended up in Antelope Valley.
Okay.
So then I thought about it, and I started working with the Youth Authority, the Department of Juvenile Justice in California. They were under a lawsuit. And one of my skills has been to take, when you're out of compliance with your IEPs, I come in and I'll bring you back into compliance, right? And then I have the added benefit of being able to take all your your worst students, and put them in a class like it's one of those movies. Right?
Yeah.
And so they were recruiting me. And so I finally decided, okay, I'll do that. I'll go with the kids. But it was really hard. The first 2 months, I could not go into the prison. It was really hard for me to reconcile, leave all your stuff, leave all your personal belongings behind, and come get locked inside this place. It really didn't sit with me well. I was late for 2 months. The first 2 months, I'm surprised they didn't fire me, because I'd be sitting in the parking lot, but maybe they saw on the cameras, there he goes again. He's doing the weird sitting.
Yeah.
Look at him. My boss, I was a resource specialist, they call it. So working with the kids in small groups or one-on-one. And this is when I really started teaching special ed. I told you before that Black and brown kids get put into special ed under that nebulous emotional disturbance.
Right.
Well, these students were actually diagnosed with things, oppositional defiance disorder, schizophrenia. So now here I am, 16 years into my career, and boom, now I'm teaching special ed to a group of 12 kids who have shot people, robbed homes, kidnapped, all the things, right? Between 12 and 23 at the time. And so
12 and 23, as young as 12.
Yeah, because the Youth Authority used to go up to 23. I think now it's down to 21, but don't quote me. And then if you have a sentence longer than you becoming 21, you go to adult prison on your 18th birthday. Your birthday gift from the state is to arrive at a state prison for adults.
Wow.
So anyway, my boss came, I'm doing a smash up job because it's you. I found the worst off students, but I found them. But my principal comes to me and he said, you're helping these kids 12 at a time. You need to promote to the adult side, help the adult males 1,200 at a time. My ego loved that, how he said that and phrased it. I'll never forget it, as you can tell. And so I promoted to what they call supervisor of academic instruction at Centinela State Prison, and was culture shocked. I knew prisoners from being in the neighborhood, and they would come out and they'd be neighborhood terrorists. You'd be afraid. I wouldn't go into the park because the lunatic is coming home and who are you going to kill next, right? And so that was my life before that. So when I got to prison, I thought it's these dumb dudes that made bad decisions, and here they are, and they're community terrorists, right? And but I quickly learned, because they're really 18 to 80. And the decade they come into prison because they still got the hairstyle. So there's forward in the hairstyle from their decade, so you can gauge how old they are.
And
so once I realized how intelligent they were, with the help of Dr. Barbara Wheeler, one of my colleagues that is amazing, we decided to let's push them. We got to bring college into here. Let's see what they're doing. Because if you can run a criminal enterprise worth as much money as your thing said, then you can run an enterprise.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
You do Venn diagrams. These are the skills that Elon Musk has to be.
Thank you.
These are the skills that you use to lead a gang in your neighborhood.
Thank you.
Circle the ones that are the same.
Say it louder, Linc, for the people in the back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And these dudes are geniuses. They keep their coffee warm with paper clips, a piece of wire, and a battery, right? And their coffee is hot and fresh the whole day. So anyway, I do that for 6 months, and then I just take over. The principal was going to retire anyway, but I needed to get my hands on the controls, right? And so I started bringing in Imperial Valley College, doing all the things. I set that up, and then I transferred to California City Prison, where I pretty much did the same thing, but it was a smaller prison and lower level. These dudes are getting out, so my work will help benefit the streets a lot sooner than it would at Centinela. And so at one time I was running 42 to 45 classes inside California City Correctional Facility, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, college program inside a prison, right? I broke records 2 years in a row for the number of GEDs that inmates got in the state of California, because those dudes wanted to get into, I wouldn't let them in college unless they had a high school diploma or GED, even though you can go to community college without that.
Yeah. That's not under Linc
policy. Yeah. So, and so just doing it big. And then unfortunately I had to give it up because it's the system, and the system is not broken. It's working as designed. And so I'm a rock in the river, and the river goes around me for a while. I'm making some impact, but then there are forces that don't want you damming up the river, right? Let the river flow. And so once you're not there, it just goes back to business as usual, in my opinion, because I believe you have to be down for the cause to be able to be successful. And I fought them for 10 years. So it wasn't like I was giving up easy, but I had to give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The system is not broken. It works as it was designed.
For sure.
Ooh. And you fought the good fight for 10 full years, which is more than I think most people.
Oh, you don't even know. We don't even have time in this podcast, but let me write the book. Let me leave the country and write the book, and then I'll come back and we'll do part.
I would be overjoyed
with that.
I can't imagine. I'm so beyond intrigued because, as you said, what you've seen, what you've endured, I'm sure the forces that came against you, I don't mean to get too tinfoil hat, but it definitely seems that maybe baked into the system isn't for people to succeed and be rehabilitated or given a chance. That quote is so powerful, Linc.
Wow. If I look different, I'd be famous. If I look different, the state of California would have held me on their shoulders, rated me up and down Main Street, California.
Wow.
But because of how I look, it became more of me being over familiar with the inmates, which of course you have to be. To do what I did, I have to know them and know their family and know what's going on. I need to baptize them.
Yeah. Well, that's how you make a difference. These are people, right? Relationships matter, especially if you truly want to make an impact. So overly familiar with the inmates. All right. I can read between those lines.
Kind of stuff,
No, I got you.
And I was. The only way that I could do what I was doing.
Right. Yeah. And the results.
The only way that I could be successful and get them to get college degrees and break records for me and do all the things. And so that was a good kind of familiar in my
of course.
Right?
Of course.
So, but the challenge with my leg is probably what made me more willing to take on those fights. And then, of course, was the ultimate reason why I had to give it up.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your leg?
Of course. Long story. But really quick, I'll give the abridged version. I was working in the hood working with this. This time I was working with students who had, what do they call it? Specific learning disability. So it's another one. Specific learning disability is you have something and your test scores, you've been diagnosed with some impairment. And your test scores are low, so then you come to the class to get enriched in whatever. This is high school, so whatever content it is. So I was doing math and science, and so I'm teaching at what used to be Locke High School, and it's the end of the year, so we're going to go out and play football and throw the football. Now, I played football before. I hurt this knee in high school, so I think that was the start of it, and we're talking 20 years after this. Okay. The last play of the game, I jumped to catch a pass, and I tore my meniscus and fractured my tibia. Pretty common in football, tennis, sports like that, skiing, stuff where you have impact to your joints.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. 1% of those go bad. Mine is like the 0.001%. But there is that margin of error that I have won the lottery in. And so during the first surgery, they gave me a staph infection. And I didn't know. This is my very first surgery of life. I consider myself very healthy, even though I was overweight and active. So I didn't know that it was infected because I've never done this before. So, and the doctor kept saying it was me. Like, you need to walk on it. You need to bend it. You need to, I'm trying, but it feels like it has hot nails in it that are on fire. Oh, I put weight on it. And he's telling me, no, it's you have my ex-wife treating me, abusing me, and saying that the doctor said I needed to get up and move it. So anyway, they did surgery after surgery. They tried to go in and clean off. They put a metal plate and 6 screws. They tried to clean that off. That didn't work. So then they took the metal out, which left my bone on bone. So I became a 90-year-old man. And then that fused together. So they kept trying they would break it. They do a surgery to break it and all of that. Eventually they put it in they broke it one time and the infection busted out of my thigh when the stitches were healing. And so I went to the emergency room and they swabbed it and they said, oh, you have methicillin susceptible Staphylococcus aureus. Thank God that word susceptible is in there.
Yes.
To be methicillin resistant,
Right.
But I had susceptible. So they did a surgery. I don't even know what they did. And they put it in a spacer and they started giving me these PICC lines with antibiotics to my heart. It killed infection, but also your kidneys, right? So after much drama, I used to have to go into doctor's office and cry and beg for them to relieve my pain and help me. And it's a real cold world out there. And so after all of that, they finally replaced my knee. They gave me a knee replacement. That's surgery number 8. And then they had to do the breaking thing with the knee replacement because my leg was so messed up at that point that I had to go back to the breaking surgery what I'll call it, the break my leg surgery. And so beautiful, wonderful ex-wife kicked me in my knee after 9 surgeries. We were breaking up and we're having a heated argument and she kicked me in that knee and kicked the knee replacement loose and infection came back. This time it was Staphylococcus lugdunensis. It was not deadly. It was a nuisance. It was like a foaming infection. It would swell up my stuff. They got to get it out of there. So I ended up having 3 surgeries back to back. And they were supposed to replace my knee, but the infection wouldn't go away. So that's when they started sending me to specialists. And I was down near the San Diego, California area. There was a doctor that was a military doctor, but he was a specialist because of these kind of injuries from military people. And so he didn't want to touch me. He said, I'm not going to try to undo what 14 surgeons have done, and then you sue me because, right? But the one thing he said, he looked at me for 10 seconds and he said, you need to get that leg cut off. And it hurt my feelings so bad. I was so hurt when he said it. I could still feel it. I could feel how the blood just drained from me during like cold. And so that offended me. He was right, but he didn't, it was no foreplay.
Right. Yeah.
It didn't hurt me. And so, but he planted the seed. And as the universe works, I started seeing it. People running races and climbing mountains and even horrible stuff. I've watched one of those true crime shows and dude with no legs, killed his girlfriend. I can't even stand up and walk. Right. So that was the turning point for me. So I started telling them, cut this leg off. And they didn't believe me. They thought I was fetishizing being an amputee, but I was in pain every day.
Oh my gosh.
Taking me out of it. So surgery number 13, they put a tumor prosthesis, a tumor prosthesis inside my leg, which is basically they give you a fake leg inside your leg. Okay. And so, but you still have a lot of your bone. They just cut off whatever piece they need to make you a leg, make the rest of the leg. So they did that. That was supposed to last 10 years. And this doctor, I loved and trusted him. I'm glad he did that. But it only lasted 2.5 years. That knee started poking a hole in my femur and, of course, had to come out. And so I tell them, cut this leg off. So then they started sending me to psychiatrists and psychologists and doctors that perform amputations and meetings with people who had amputees, but they would organize them where it'd be all people that hated that they got their leg cut off, right? I'm asking you to cut my leg off. This person had a horrible motorcycle accident and lost their limb. So yes, they're mad. This person had diabetes since they were born and lost their ankle. So yes, they're mad. I want to talk to somebody that asked you to cut it off and see what their regrets are or not, right? Because it's so, yeah. So anyway, I got outvoted. They're not going to cut my leg off. They're going to do a mega prosthesis, which is a more sturdy version of what I had before. And it's going to last 35 years. I'll die with that. I'll never have to have surgery again. That broke my leg in 28 days in my sleep. I was laying down. I was writing an English 101 text. So I went traveling and I was absolutely in the bed and turned over in the bed and my leg broke. And so then I was just stubborn, cut this leg off.
Yeah, truly. Listen to the guy.
In the hospital for 3 days. They wanted to do and it's a lot more to the story, but it's they wanted to do a experimental surgery where they're going to take my hip out and they'll do the same thing, but from my hip to my ankle. So my whole leg would be fake on the inside, except for my hip and my ankle and foot. But if something goes wrong, they're going to cut my leg off at the hip. I'll get a hip disarticulation. Y'all are 0 for 14. So what you're telling me is go get a let y'all practice on me and then get a hip disarticulation. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Cut the leg off and we'll go from there. And so a guy came in, he said, I'm gonna cut your leg off at 4:30, whatever that means and stuff. So then that's what happened. November 16th, 2020.
2020. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad they finally listened to you.
Legend was born.
I'm sorry?
I said that's when the left-legged legend was born.
Left-legged legends. Just great transition. I'm sorry you went through all of that. We could do a whole other podcast, about how different people are listened to and treated in medical society. Yes. I don't know if you watched my other episode. If you haven't, or if anyone else hasn't, I had a gentleman named Terry on the podcast who lives with cystic fibrosis like I do, except he's an African-American gentleman. And where people that look like me got diagnosed with this lung condition in infancy, he didn't get diagnosed until he was in his 50s and suffered immeasurably. And instead of being angry, which he has every right to be, and he has worked to reform the system in the United States to make sure that pediatricians understand how to diagnose people that don't look like me, that have a whole, anyway, I digress, but I'm sorry you went through all of that. That is just, I hope you're feeling a bit better. And
my life. They gave me back more than they took away. And I'm saying I decided to have this done, but got my life back. I feel 10 feet tall with my prosthesis on.
All right. I love that. So you tell me what was born, the left-legged legends? Is that what you said? Okay. Yeah. Tell me about that, because that feels like there's something there.
Imagine I've gone through all of everything I just told you. And this hospital, it's the night before they're about to cut my leg off. And now I'm having buyer's remorse. Oh my God, what did I ask about? Like, I'm going to have to make love and take a shower and in front of a hot stove. Or, oh my God, like what in the world we could do? And so I started imagining what I do in my life is I imagine I live in a whole different world than you live in. And so I'm like went in my imagination and started thinking of how those things would look and what I would do. And of course, in my mind, I made it look legendary. So I was standing there like, oh, this is where the whole other story begins. People were telling me how strong I was for going through what I've gone through. But I knew on the other side, I would definitely be stronger because I had so much that I didn't know was coming. And so I created it that night. I went on YouTube and added it to my profile and just started creating things, emails and all the things, because I wanted to remember that I came up with that name and for real, ever since then. And it started with my mom and the trips, right? But then when I got older and I had that infection for 14 months, I have a friend whose mom had it for 4 days and died. So I'm very fortunate to be infected for that long and not have some serious consequences, right? My amputation it's because of the infection, but it wasn't like that, right? And so I started telling myself, you've never even been anywhere, right? You've been in North America with your mom, which now I take for granted because that was my life, right? I've been to I've been to everywhere right now, not everywhere. I've covered North America pretty much. Yeah. And so I need to go to other places. So I started doing trips with USC with the Prize program. I went to my very first international trip was Seoul, South Korea, and Taipei, Taiwan. Taipei, one of my favorite cities on earth.
No one talks about how great Taipei is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh.
I agree. I've been once. I can't wait to go back.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, me either.
Yeah.
And then I went to South Korea. I didn't like South Korea that much, but it was my birthday and I thought it would be warm and it was freezing cold.
Oh,
So, of course, I was so disappointed when
Yeah.
I got off the plane in my shorts and t-shirt. And it was like 12 to be. I remember it was.
boom.
So that's how it started. And then I started trying to present at international conferences. So that would take me to Canada, which of course, like I said, I take it for granted. I'm like, oh, I've been there. I need to go somewhere else. Got invited to Paris, but ended up not going. And those sorts of things started happening. And then I just started going out in the world. Like, oh, I'm going to go to Central America. Costa Rica was like my third trip after those two. And then just expanded further, Colombia, and of course, all the Caribbean islands. I went to Cuba. And so it just started a thing. And then I met my beautiful wife now from the Philippines, and she opened up a whole other world to me, like literally and figuratively, right?
I bet.
So that's been my life. And that's what we are going to continue in that vein, because to me, that's legendary. That's abundance, being able to see the world and interact with cultures and immerse myself and do all the things. And yes, it costs money and it takes money, but I've met people that don't own a pair of shoes and they're infinitely happier than both of us.
Boom.
Right?
Boom.
With that, and nothing, right? But they are infinitely happier than us. And so
Yes.
I'm facing that abundance.
I love that. Mic drop. It is the relationships that we have, the memories that we create, what we decide to focus on with gratitude, the roof over our head, the food in our bellies. Yeah, the great people that we have in our lives.
And we take it for granted because it's there every day. And so I want to take a moment and inspire your viewers to go to that place, go and see it and get out of the hotel and interact with the culture and see what it's like. You might find your second home or some more family, right?
I love that. You read my mind because I was going to ask, as we go full circle with this journey of where you came from, how you decided to help people in need with these incredible skills you were given and the pushback that you got and then your personal health challenges. And even people who aren't watching this on video and are just listening, I'm sure can feel your energy and the smile that you've had on your face from ear to ear despite the struggle. No, but what advice, if someone's listening here and is thinking, gosh, my life stinks, or I don't know where to go from here. How do I be more like Linc? I mean, what advice, what knowledge encouragement would you give them?
I have those days too.
Yeah.
And we all have those days. But I think the biggest difference, or what I would tell people, is to always have plans. Have something in your plans. You're going to make that quilt. You're going to go to that spot and get that coffee that you really like that you've been putting off. You're going to go have donuts and coffee with the loved one that you've been not saying you don't. Always have the plan to do something, whether that's you're going to write a book or you're going to go see Europe or whatever it is. Make that plan and then just slowly and smallly start working at it. And then every day becomes a happy day because you're doing that thing that is making you happy. What makes me happy is getting on planes for long periods of time.
Yeah.
It's totally afraid of flying.
Yeah.
But that makes me happy, and land in a place that I've never been and just enjoy that and hope that my wife is with me. That always makes it more fun, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and those sort of things, and my loved ones. And so that's what I tell people, like, do the thing. And of course, my research and my dissertation was globalization in education. So that's about expanding students' worldviews and all the things, giving them those experiences. And so thank my mom for driving me around North America, because now I'm out in the world looking for places to get land and build homes and connect to culturally and find my roots and connect with my ancestors' people, right? And those things become super important that make me every day have this smile, right? Because I'm learning those things and getting that information. And in a week, I'm back on a plane out and world. I complain, I'll come back and my wallet will be thin and I'll have to eat a little lighter, but
I hear that.
I'm already 10 pounds heavier because I went and lived a whole life out there, right?
There you go. It's fixable. That's a minor little thing. Like, this world is better because you're in it. And I'm so grateful that you agreed to share your story. And like you said, hopefully this is just part one. Hopefully we get to do this again. And I'm just so thankful for you sharing your energy. I think even just myself, my day is better from having spent some time with you. Now, truly, the energy's real. Am I going to see you at a football game this fall?
I have season tickets. So
Okay.
I was just going to look. I need to start watching my flights because
Okay.
it's easy to fly from Vegas to LA.
Yes.
So I just have to block off my dates.
Okay.
Because you already know, I'm so sorry. I'm the person that has 12 things and 12 calendars.
I'm a persistent little bugger, so I'll find you. I'll find you. I got my USC mug. I see you got your Etsy shirt. So we got to. Okay, I love it.
I love my prayer beads I bring to the game.
All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. Linc, where can folks get a hold of you? I'm sure some people are going to want to reach out and get some more Linc in their life. Where can they find you?
Legged Legend on everything, Instagram, and hopefully share the links and everything.
Yep.
Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm Dr. Linc J, DRLINCJ. But if you look for Left-Legged Legend, I got like 6 seasons of my Left-Legged Legend television.
I love it. You're amazing, friend. I'm so glad I met you. Thank you again for spending time with us today. And we're excited to keep following your journey.
Yes.
All right. Fight on.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Sylvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.